We live in a world where companionship is often presented as the ultimate goal, the epitome of success. From childhood, we're told to find that someone special, and that only in partnership will we experience true happiness, fulfillment, and love. Whether it's through fairy tales, romantic comedies, or social media influencers who portray picture-perfect lives with their partners, we are conditioned to believe that we need another person to be whole. There's an overwhelming pressure to be in a relationship, and often, the idea of being alone is considered a weakness, something to be avoided at all costs. But what if everything we've been taught about love, companionship, and relationships is not just flawed, but actively preventing us from realizing our full potential? Let's start with solitude. When we talk about being alone, the first thing that often comes to mind is loneliness, emptiness, or even failure. But this view of solitude as something negative is deeply ingrained in us. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Loneliness is the discomfort of feeling disconnected from others, the fear of not being accepted, not being loved. But solitude is an entirely different experience. It's a conscious choice to be alone, to turn inward, and it is in this sacred space of aloneness that the deepest personal growth occurs. Solitude allows you to connect with yourself on a deeper level, without the distractions or compromises that come with being in a relationship. It offers the rare opportunity to truly understand who you are, what you value, and what you want in life, without the noise of outside influences. Jung spoke about the importance of solitude as a foundation for individuation, the process of becoming the fullest version of yourself. He argued that we cannot truly know ourselves if we are constantly surrounded by the expectations, judgments, and needs of others. In solitude, we are forced to confront our own thoughts, desires, and fears. It is uncomfortable at first. There's nowhere to hide, no one to lean on, but it's precisely this discomfort that makes it so powerful. It is only in these moments of stillness that we can begin to uncover what lies beneath the surface, to examine the parts of ourselves that have been ignored or repressed in the name of social conformity. There is a deep, almost sacred truth in solitude that we fail to recognize when we are constantly chasing companionship. When we are alone, we don't have to play a role or put on a mask. We don't have to be anything other than ourselves. This is the truth Jung was pointing to. Solitude is not a punishment. It's an invitation to explore our deepest selves. It's in these moments that we can engage in real self-reflection, ask ourselves the tough questions, and begin to answer them with honesty and authenticity. It's where we come face to face with our own desires, our own dreams, and our own fears. We stop running from ourselves and start learning to truly be ourselves. The truth is, many of us fear solitude because we fear facing what it reveals. In a relationship, we can lose ourselves in the other person, in the shared narrative of we instead of I. It's easy to forget who we are when we are constantly performing, constantly adapting to someone else's needs and desires. But when we are alone, there is no hiding. There is no one else to blame, no one else to change or please. There is only us. And it is here, in this raw, unfiltered space, that we begin to heal and grow. This isn't to say that relationships are inherently bad. In fact, relationships can be beautiful and transformative when both individuals have done the deep work of self-discovery and are coming together from a place of wholeness, not neediness. But how many relationships are driven by a fear of being alone, of not measuring up to societal expectations of what it means to be happy and successful? How many times do we enter into relationships out of fear rather than love? The truth is, many people seek companionship not because they want to share their life with someone, but because they fear the emptiness of solitude. They fear that without someone else, they are incomplete. But here's the paradox. It is only when we embrace solitude, when we learn to be comfortable in our own skin, that we become truly ready for meaningful relationships. Only when we are whole and complete within ourselves can we enter into a partnership from a place of authenticity and mutual respect. Solitude is not the enemy of love, it is its foundation. If we don't know how to be alone, how can we ever truly know how to be with another? Jung understood this deeply. He recognized that true individuation, the process of becoming your true self, requires time spent alone, away from the pressures and influences of the outside world. It is in solitude that we can connect with our inner wisdom, our creative potential, and our true desires. It's in solitude that we begin to understand the difference between love and dependence. The truth is that modern culture teaches us to fear solitude because it forces us to confront our own imperfections, our own unresolved pain, and our own unmet desires. But it is only by embracing this discomfort that we can begin to move toward wholeness. It is in solitude that we find the courage to face our deepest fears, to stop running from ourselves, and to step into our true power. Solitude is not a place of emptiness. It is a place of potential, of growth, and of deep self-discovery. So the next time you find yourself longing for the company of another, remember this. Being alone is not a punishment. It is not a sign of failure. It is an invitation to connect with yourself, to discover who you truly are beneath the surface, and to begin the process of becoming whole. Embrace it, not as a void to be filled, but as the fertile ground where your most authentic self can take root. In solitude, you are not missing out on anything. You are giving yourself the gift of self-awareness, of peace, and of inner strength. It is in these moments of stillness that your true potential can emerge. So don't fear being alone. Embrace it, because only in this space can you begin to live a life that is truly your own. Only then will you be ready to share it with someone else, from a place of wholeness and authenticity. There's a strange and uncomfortable truth lurking beneath the surface of many people's lives, the fear of being alone. It's not something people always talk about openly, but it's there. Whether we admit it to ourselves or not, the idea of being by ourselves, without the constant presence of a partner, can stir up all kinds of deep, unsettling emotions. It's as if being alone is a threat, as if the very idea of it shakes the foundation of who we are. And yet, this fear is often rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of what being alone truly means. We live in a world where being part of a couple is often seen as the gold standard of happiness. The idea that we are only whole when we are with someone else is so deeply ingrained in our culture that it almost becomes impossible to think outside of it. Social media bombards us with images of perfect couples, vacations, dinners, and seemingly endless happiness shared between two people. The pressure to conform to this ideal is so intense that many of us find ourselves in relationships not because we genuinely want to be with someone, but because we fear the judgment, the loneliness, or the perceived inadequacy of being alone. We've been sold the idea that love is the answer to everything, and that the only way to be truly fulfilled is through someone else. But what if the opposite is true? What if the key to a fulfilling life is not in finding someone else, but in learning to be with yourself? What if the fear of being alone isn't about solitude at all, but about the discomfort of facing ourselves? When we're alone, there are no distractions, no excuses. There's no one else to lean on or to deflect our emotions onto. It's just us, facing ourselves head-on. And that's the part that many people are terrified of, facing who they really are, without the comfort of someone else to fill the gaps. Being alone doesn't mean being lonely. In fact, it can be the complete opposite. It's in those quiet, alone moments that we begin to discover the person we've been avoiding. The person we are when we stop trying to fit into the roles others expect of us, when we stop performing for the world. It's in solitude that we can connect with our true self, without the influence of anyone else. There's no one to tell us who we should be or how we should act. There's no need to please or perform. It's in these moments that we have the chance to finally hear our own voice, to listen to our own desires, and to reconnect with what truly matters to us. The power of being alone lies in its ability to strip away the noise and distractions of life. In a world filled with constant connections and external pressures, solitude offers us a chance to step back and recalibrate. It allows us to focus on what truly brings us joy, to reconnect with our passions, and to remember who we are beyond the expectations of others. But this kind of power isn't something we're taught to embrace. Instead, we're taught to fear it. We're told that we should be afraid of being alone, that something is wrong with us if we aren't constantly surrounded by other people. And so, many of us live our lives in a constant state of seeking. seeking love, seeking validation, seeking connection, anything to fill the space where we believe something is missing. But the truth is, nothing is missing. The only thing that is missing is the ability to sit with ourselves, to be at peace with who we are when no one else is around. The fear of being alone is often a reflection of our deeper fear, the fear of not being enough, the fear of confronting our own vulnerabilities, the fear of truly seeing ourselves for who we are. When we allow ourselves to sit with those fears, to confront them directly, we begin to unlock the real power of solitude. It's not about avoiding the discomfort of being alone. It's about embracing it, knowing that it's in that space that we find our greatest potential. The problem comes when we make decisions based on the fear of being alone. We rush into relationships, friendships, and commitments because we're scared of facing the emptiness we believe exists inside of us. We cling to others to avoid the discomfort of looking inward. But this doesn't lead to real fulfillment. It leads to dependency. It leads to self-betrayal. Because in trying to fill the void with someone else, we are avoiding the real work we need to do to heal and grow on our own. Relationships, when entered into from a place of fear, become a way to escape ourselves, not a means of truly connecting with another person. Carl Jung understood this dynamic deeply. He recognized that in order to achieve true self-realization, we must first learn to be alone with ourselves. He called this process individuation, a journey of self-discovery where we integrate the different parts of ourselves and become the person we are meant to be. This process requires solitude, time spent away from the distractions of the world and the expectations of others. It's in solitude that we confront our shadows, the parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore. It's in solitude that we develop the strength to stand on our own, to be our true selves without needing external validation. And it's in solitude that we gain the clarity to choose relationships, not out of fear or need, but from a place of strength and authenticity. When we allow ourselves to be alone, we start to realize that we are not incomplete. We are whole, just as we are. And when we realize this, we stop seeking validation from others. We stop looking for someone to fix us, to make us feel whole. We begin to trust ourselves and our own abilities to create the life we desire. We understand that being alone is not a deficiency, but an opportunity to nurture our own growth and to cultivate the things that truly matter to us. In fact, some of the most successful, fulfilled, and creative people in history achieved their greatness precisely because they embraced solitude. They didn't fear being alone, they sought it out. They recognized that in solitude, they could focus on their craft, their ideas, and their passions. They understood that the deepest, most transformative work often happens in the quiet spaces, away from the noise of the world. And this is where the true power of being alone lies. Not in avoidance, not in escapism, but in the freedom to explore, create, and grow without the limitations or distractions imposed by others. When we stop fearing being alone, we start to reclaim our power. We begin to see that solitude is not a place of weakness or isolation. It is a place of strength, of clarity, and of growth. It's where we can finally connect with who we truly are, without the pressures of society, without the expectations of family or friends, and without the need to constantly perform. And it's in this space, this powerful, quiet space, that we begin to realize that we are not missing anything. We are whole, exactly as we are. To understand the real power of being alone, it's crucial to dive into the concept of individuation, a term Carl Jung used to describe the process of becoming the fullest version of yourself. Most people go through life fitting into roles shaped by society, culture, family, and relationships. We play parts that are assigned to us, and over time, we begin to believe that these roles define us. We're not really living as ourselves. We're living as versions of ourselves that have been created by external forces. We may not even realize it, but every decision we make, every belief we hold, has been influenced by these forces. And that's where individuation comes in. It's the process of shedding those external layers, of unmasking ourselves to find out who we really are underneath. Jung believed that in order to become whole, we have to go through a process of self-discovery, where we face our deepest fears, confront our inner darkness, and strip away the parts of ourselves that are not truly ours. It's about embracing our full complexity, the light and the shadow, the strengths and weaknesses, the desires and the fears. Individuation is not about becoming perfect or conforming to some ideal version of ourselves. It's about being authentic, embracing every aspect of our being, and living from a place of truth. But here's the thing. Individuation is a process that can't be rushed. It's a journey that requires patience, courage, and, yes, solitude. You can't go through the deep inner work of self-discovery while constantly being distracted by the needs and expectations of other people. And this is where the fear of being alone often gets in the way. People are so afraid of facing themselves that they constantly surround themselves with noise, relationships, friendships, work, hobbies, anything to fill the silence. But it's only in that silence, in that solitude, that we can start to uncover who we really are. Individuation requires a willingness to face your shadow, the parts of yourself that you've suppressed, rejected, or denied. The shadow is the unconscious part of your psyche, the collection of traits and desires that you may not even be aware of because they've been pushed out of sight. The problem is that the more you deny these parts of yourself, the more they control your life from behind the scenes. The shadow manifests in all sorts of ways: emotional outbursts, self-sabotage, irrational fears, and unhealthy patterns in relationships. Until you confront and integrate your shadow, you'll never be free. And that's why solitude is so essential to individuation, because it's in these quiet moments that you can finally face what's hidden, look at it, and begin to accept it as part of who you are. Individuation isn't just about facing the dark parts of ourselves. It's also about embracing our deepest desires, our truest passions, and our unique purpose. Each of us has a unique path in life, a calling that is specific to us. But in order to hear that call, we need to be still enough to listen. How can you hear your own inner voice if you're constantly surrounded by the voices of others? How can you tune into your own intuition if you're always seeking validation from the outside world? In solitude, you can begin to hear the whispers of your own soul, the dreams and desires that have been buried under layers of societal expectations. And once you start to listen, the path forward becomes clearer. But it's not easy. The process of individuation can be painful and uncomfortable because it requires us to break free from the false identities we've constructed. It forces us to look at the parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore and to accept the things we've spent a lifetime running from. But it's in that discomfort that growth happens. It's in that discomfort that we find our true power, our authentic selves. And once we begin to embrace who we really are, the world around us starts to shift. We no longer feel the need to conform to the expectations of others. We no longer seek approval or validation because we know who we are. We can stand tall in our own truth. One of the most powerful aspects of individuation is that it allows us to stop relying on others to define us. In a world where relationships are often seen as the ultimate source of fulfillment, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that we are only valuable when we're in partnership with someone else. But individuation teaches us that true fulfillment doesn't come from external sources, it comes from within. It comes from knowing who you are, embracing all of your parts, and living in alignment with your own truth. Relationships become more meaningful when they are entered into from a place of wholeness. When we are not relying on others to complete us, we are free to connect with them as equals, as two whole individuals coming together to share life's journey. Jung also spoke about the idea of the anima and the animus, the inner feminine and masculine aspects that exist within all of us, regardless of gender. These aspects represent the unconscious traits and energies that we often ignore or suppress. For example, a man may have a deep, unconscious connection to his feminine side, his emotions, intuition, and nurturing qualities. But because of societal expectations, he may repress these traits and only express the more traditionally masculine qualities of strength and assertiveness. The process of individuation involves integrating both the anima and animus, allowing both the feminine and masculine aspects of ourselves to coexist in harmony. This integration is crucial to living a balanced, authentic life. When we suppress one side of ourselves, we create inner conflict and imbalance. But when we embrace both sides of our nature, we become more whole, more integrated, and more powerful. Individuation is ultimately about reclaiming your personal power. It's about breaking free from the constraints of external expectations and finding your own path. It's about creating a life that is true to who you are, not who the world thinks you should be. And this is why solitude is such an essential part of the process. In order to truly know yourself, you need time to reflect, to process, and to integrate all the different parts of your psyche. Without solitude, you cannot hear your own inner voice. Without solitude, you cannot do the deep work of self-discovery that is necessary for individuation. And without individuation, you cannot live the life you are truly meant to live. The fear of being alone often prevents people from taking the necessary steps toward individuation. But if you can learn to embrace solitude, to use it as a tool for self-discovery, you will unlock the full potential of your life. You will find the freedom to be yourself, unapologetically and authentically. You will find the strength to stand tall in your truth, no matter what anyone else thinks. And most importantly, you will find peace, a deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing you are living in alignment with your highest self. Individuation is a lifelong journey. It's not something that happens overnight, but it's a journey that is worth taking and one that can only be undertaken in solitude. It's in the quiet moments of self-reflection that we uncover who we truly are. And it's in those moments that we begin to step into our true power. There's this pervasive idea that we are only whole when we are with someone else. It's a belief that gets reinforced everywhere we look: movies, advertisements, social media. You see people in happy relationships, holding hands, smiling, traveling together, and it's easy to think, that's what I need. That's what I'm missing. We grow up with the idea that being single is somehow incomplete, that there's something wrong with us if we aren't partnered up. The whole world seems to tell us that relationships are the ultimate goal, the final destination of happiness. But the reality is far from what we've been led to believe. Relationships, at least as they are typically understood, are not the keys to our happiness or self-realization. In many ways, they are distractions from the work we really need to do, the work of truly becoming who we are. Most people enter relationships not because they are already whole, but because they feel they are missing something. We look for someone to complete us, to fill in the gaps that we feel are there. But the thing is, no one can complete you. You can't expect another person to take responsibility for your inner peace, your happiness, or your sense of worth. And yet, so many people enter relationships from this place of need, from a place where they are unconsciously hoping that someone else will fill that void. And what ends up happening is that, instead of coming together as two whole individuals, both people enter the relationship with the same idea, that they are incomplete and looking for someone to make them whole. This is a dangerous pattern, because when you rely on someone else to fulfill you, you're giving up your own power. You are letting someone else determine your worth. Carl Jung understood that true self-realization, true wholeness, doesn't come from another person. It comes from within. Relationships, when entered into from a place of fear or need, can actually prevent us from growing into our full selves. Instead of being a source of fulfillment, they become a source of distraction. The constant need to accommodate someone else, to compromise, to adjust to another person's needs, can cause us to lose sight of our own. Over time, you start making decisions not based on what's true for you, but based on what keeps the relationship intact. You give up parts of yourself in order to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, or to meet the expectations of the other person. You silence your own desires, your own needs, and you start to forget who you really are. The more you compromise, the more you disappear. And this is where the illusion of completeness comes in. We tell ourselves that a relationship will fix things, that if we just find the right person, everything will fall into place. But in reality, what happens is we lose ourselves in the process. We forget who we were before the relationship, and we start to identify only with the role we're playing in the relationship. We become the boyfriend or girlfriend, the husband or wife, the partner. We stop being individuals and start being part of a unit. And as comforting as this may feel, it's a trap. Because the truth is, you are already whole. You were born whole. The desire to find someone to complete us is rooted in fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of not measuring up, the fear of not being enough. But none of these fears are true. You don't need someone else to complete you, to validate you, or to tell you that you are worthy. You are worthy already. And when you realize that, when you truly understand that your worth doesn't depend on anyone else, you start to see relationships in a completely different light. Jung saw the power of relationships, but he also saw their limitations. He understood that true growth happens when we are not constantly looking outside of ourselves for validation. Relationships can be beautiful, but they can also be incredibly stifling if we rely on them for our sense of self-worth. When we enter relationships out of fear of being alone or out of a need to be completed, we give away our autonomy. We allow ourselves to be shaped by someone else's needs, desires, and expectations. And in doing so, we lose touch with our own essence. The real work, according to Jung, is not about finding someone else to fill the void inside of us, but about turning inward, facing our fears and desires, and discovering our true selves. The illusion of completeness in relationships is rooted in a lack of understanding of what true love is. Love isn't about finding someone to complete you. It's about two people coming together as equals, two whole individuals who are each on their own journey of self-realization. When you're in a relationship because you feel incomplete, you're not really in a relationship with the other person. You're in a relationship with your own fear, your own need. And the other person becomes a projection of that need, rather than an actual human being. You end up clinging to them because they make you feel less afraid, less insecure, less alone. But that's not love, it's dependence. It's not freedom, it's emotional captivity. True love happens when both people are secure in themselves, when they can give to each other without expecting anything in return. Jung saw love as a force of growth and transformation. True love allows you to become the best version of yourself, not by depending on the other person, but by allowing the relationship to challenge you, to push you out of your comfort zone, to help you grow. But this kind of love can only happen when both people are already complete within themselves. It's about two people coming together to share their lives, not to escape from their own fears or inadequacies. And it's in these kinds of relationships that true growth happens, because both individuals are strong enough to support each other, but they are not dependent on each other for their sense of worth. When you realize that you don't need anyone to complete you, the pressure to find someone diminishes. You stop seeking out relationships to fill an emptiness you don't actually have. Instead, you start living from a place of wholeness, of inner peace. And when you do enter a relationship, it's no longer about trying to fix yourself or fill a void. It's about sharing your life with someone who complements you, who supports you, but who does not define you. This is why the fear of being alone is so dangerous. It keeps you from seeing your own wholeness. It keeps you from realizing that you are already everything you need. And once you truly understand that, once you come to terms with the fact that you are not missing anything, relationships will look very different. They won't be about finding someone to complete you. They will be about sharing your life with someone who is already whole in their own right. Only then can love be truly freeing. There's something profoundly powerful about being alone. It's a strange paradox in today's world where everyone is always plugged into something, seeking connection, validation, and distraction. We've been led to believe that the greatest things in life happen when we share them with others, when we're in the presence of friends, family, or lovers. But if you look closely at history, at the truly transformative and groundbreaking people, many of them did their most powerful work alone. Creators, inventors, writers, philosophers, and artists. These were people who often spent long stretches of time in solitude, away from the noise and distractions of the world. The solitude wasn't a burden for them. It was a tool for focus, for creativity, and for understanding themselves and the world in a way that was deep, raw, and unfiltered. It's easy to assume that collaboration, companionship, and being constantly surrounded by others would lead to the best ideas, the most profound breakthroughs, and the richest relationships. But what if the opposite is true? What if the real freedom, the kind that allows you to think, create, and live without constraint, exists only when you're completely alone, when there's no one else around to influence your thoughts, to impose their emotions, or to distract you from your deepest purpose. Think about the great figures in history: Einstein, Picasso, Kafka, Van Gogh. How many of them were isolated at key moments in their lives, pursuing their work in silence and solitude? It's in these moments that their greatest ideas took form, when they had the time and space to let their thoughts roam freely, without worrying about anything or anyone else. The creative process requires space. It requires mental clarity, and mental clarity requires silence. When you're constantly surrounded by people, even the people you love, there's always a pull to respond to them, to care for their emotions, to navigate the ebb and flow of social dynamics. There's always something else demanding your attention, pulling you away from your own thoughts, your own creativity. The greatest thinkers and creators of history understood this. They knew that in order to truly create, they needed time alone, time to think, to question, to imagine, and to build something that was purely their own. This was a luxury they sought, not out of a desire to avoid others, but because they understood that the process of creation was a deeply personal one, something that could not be shared, interrupted, or diluted by outside voices. What happens when we allow ourselves to be alone, to truly embrace solitude, is that we step into a space where we are free to explore our ideas without fear of judgment, without concern for whether or not someone else will understand us, without the limitations of social expectations. It's only when we are alone that we have the time to look inward, to confront our own complexities, and to find the true source of inspiration that comes from being in touch with our own deeper self. This is when the magic happens, when our most innovative and original ideas begin to take shape. Solitude is also where we're free to let our minds wander, to entertain the wildest, most absurd thoughts without any external influence. Think of all the great ideas in science, in art, in literature. How many of them started as simple daydreams, thoughts that at first seemed ridiculous or impractical? But in the solitude of their own minds, these thoughts were allowed to develop, to evolve, and eventually to transform into groundbreaking concepts and works. How many inventions were born in the stillness of someone's mind, free from the judgment or constraints of other people? The truth is, our creativity thrives when we give ourselves the time and space to think without boundaries, without interruptions, and without the need for approval from anyone else. When we are alone, we're not just free from the distractions of others. We're also free from our own fears, from the anxieties that often cloud our judgment when we're worried about what others will think of us. Solitude allows us to connect with our own unfiltered thoughts, to hear what our true desires are, and to listen to the voice of our inner genius. It's in these moments of solitude that we stop second-guessing ourselves, stop questioning our worth, and stop holding back. We start trusting our own instincts, knowing that the path we are on is the one we were always meant to take. There is a freedom that comes with being truly alone. It's not just the absence of others. It's the absence of external pressure, the absence of the need to conform, to please, to fit in. When we're alone, we can let go of all the roles we've been taught to play, and we can simply be. This is where real creativity lives, in the space where we are free from the pressures of society, from the expectations of our peers, and from the constant noise of modern life. This is where true innovation happens, when our minds are clear, unburdened by distractions, and fully immersed in the process of creating something entirely new. Jung understood this. He knew that the mind, to truly expand, needs space, space to roam freely, to think deeply, to explore new ideas without fear of judgment or limitation. Solitude, for Jung, was not a punishment or a deprivation. It was a tool, a necessary condition for self-realization and personal growth. Without solitude, there is no space for reflection, no room to question, no time to create. Without solitude, we remain stuck in the same patterns, living the lives that others have prescribed for us, without ever discovering the full extent of our own potential. The fear of being alone is often rooted in the fear of missing out, on connection, on love, on experiences. But what if, in avoiding solitude, we are actually missing out on the most profound and meaningful connection we can have, the connection with ourselves. What if it's in solitude that we find the answers to the questions that have been plaguing us, the solutions to the problems that seem insurmountable, the clarity that allows us to move forward in life with confidence and purpose? What if the key to unlocking our true potential lies not in seeking validation from others, but in looking inward, in taking the time to nurture our own creative energy and intellectual curiosity? The solitude of genius is not about isolation in the traditional sense. It's about creating a space for the mind to flourish. It's about giving yourself the permission to think, to imagine, and to create without constraint. It's about stepping away from the constant demands of the world around you and finding peace in the quiet. In this space, anything is possible. In this space, we can become the truest versions of ourselves, unfettered by the judgments of others, unburdened by the pressure to fit into any mold. It is here, in the silence, that the seeds of greatness are planted, that the most brilliant ideas are born, and that we are free to become who we were always meant to be. The fear of being alone is a fear of missing out. But the truth is, when we embrace solitude, we open ourselves up to the most profound creative possibilities, to the deepest understanding of who we are and what we are capable of. Solitude is not something to be feared. It's something to be cherished, nurtured, and embraced. It's in this quiet, sacred space that the magic happens. It's here that we find the freedom to truly be ourselves, to explore the depths of our imagination, and to create something extraordinary. Choosing yourself is a radical decision, one that's often met with resistance. We're told from a young age that love means giving yourself away, that to truly love, you must sacrifice your own needs for the sake of someone else. Whether it's parents, friends, or romantic partners, we grow up with this belief that love is always about prioritizing others. But what if, just for a moment, we flip that narrative on its head? What if the greatest act of love, the most courageous thing you could do, was to choose yourself, to stop seeking approval from others, to stop looking for validation, and instead, to fully embrace who you are, exactly as you are, without apology? It's almost shocking when you think about it, isn't it? The idea that loving yourself could be the most powerful thing you could do, not just for you, but for the world around you. But think about it. When was the last time you chose yourself over someone else's expectations of you? When was the last time you said no to something or someone because it didn't align with your truth? Choosing yourself doesn't mean being selfish in the negative sense of the word. It means recognizing that your own needs, your own desires, and your own happiness matter. It means acknowledging that you are enough on your own and that your worth doesn't come from the validation of others. You don't need anyone to complete you. You are already whole. This is one of the hardest truths for many people to accept because we live in a world that thrives on emotional dependence. We're taught from a young age that our value comes from how others see us, that we need to be part of a pair, that we need to be complete in order to be worthy of love. And while there's nothing wrong with partnership, there's something deeply flawed about the idea that we must surrender ourselves to be loved, that we must give up our autonomy, our sense of self, to make space for someone else to fill in the gaps. The reality is, when we make someone else the center of our world, we lose ourselves in the process. We start to make compromises, small ones at first, sacrificing our own desires, suppressing our own voices, and bending ourselves to fit into the mold of what someone else expects from us. The problem is that this process doesn't just make us lose touch with who we really are. It can make us forget that we ever knew who we were in the first place. The truth is, in a healthy relationship, both partners should bring their own wholeness into the relationship. Two individuals, each with their own sense of self, choosing to come together and share their lives, not because they need to, but because they want to. When you choose yourself first, you're not rejecting love. You're creating space for love that is real and authentic. Love that isn't rooted in need, but in freedom. It's love that comes from two people who are whole, who are at peace with themselves, and who choose to share their lives together because it enriches their individual journeys, not because it fills some empty void. Choosing yourself doesn't mean you're shutting people out or pushing them away. It means you are setting boundaries, Healthy, firm boundaries that protect your energy, your peace, and your mental and emotional well-being. It means not accepting less than you deserve, not compromising your integrity to keep the peace, and not allowing anyone to diminish your sense of self. It's about honoring your own worth, even when others don't understand. Even when society tells you that you should be with someone, that you should be living a certain way, that you should be following a prescribed path. Choosing yourself means rejecting the idea that your happiness depends on someone else, and instead realizing that the only person who can define your worth is you. But here's the kicker. When you choose yourself, when you start to show up for yourself in ways that honor your true desires and your authentic self, the people who are meant to be in your life will be drawn to you. When you no longer need external validation, when you stand firm in your own truth, you become magnetic. People who respect you for who you truly are will come into your life, and those who don't, well, they will naturally fade away. And that's okay. You see, choosing yourself isn't about rejecting others. It's about creating space for the relationships and connections that truly align with who you are, that respect your boundaries, and that nurture your growth. It's about trusting that the people who are meant to be with you will find you when you are fully yourself. And the beautiful thing about choosing yourself is that it gives you the freedom to stop hiding. You don't have to dim your light or shrink yourself to fit into someone else's version of you. You stop playing the role of who you think you should be and start embracing who you truly are. No more pretending, no more suppressing your true feelings or desires in order to fit in. You're free to speak your truth, to pursue your passions, to make decisions that are in alignment with your deepest values. You stop asking for permission, stop apologizing for your desires, and stop fearing that you will be judged or rejected for who you are. Living authentically, choosing yourself, is a radical act. It takes courage to walk away from societal expectations, to let go of the need to conform to the picture of success and happiness that everyone else seems to be living. It takes courage to stand firm in your own truth when everything around you tells you to be something else, to fit into someone else's idea of what your life should look like. But once you make the decision to choose yourself, everything changes. You start to live a life that is not driven by the fear of being alone or being judged, but by the joy of living as your true self. You no longer have to play the game. You can stop pretending to be someone you're not just to get validation. And in doing so, you invite the kind of love, friendship, and fulfillment that can only come when you are living authentically. The act of choosing yourself is deeply empowering. It's about reclaiming your power, your autonomy, and your voice. It's about stepping into the fullness of who you are, without apology, without compromise. And when you do this, you stop living in fear. You stop letting fear of rejection, fear of being alone, or fear of judgment hold you back. You realize that your happiness, your success, and your fulfillment are all in your hands, and they always have been. You begin to trust yourself and your ability to create the life you want. And here's the thing. When you choose yourself, you no longer feel like you're sacrificing love. You realize that love isn't about giving up your sense of self for someone else. It's about choosing someone who appreciates, supports, and respects your individuality. It's about being with someone who encourages your growth, who honors your boundaries, and who loves you for who you truly are. Real love, the kind that lasts and thrives, isn't built on dependency or need. It's built on mutual respect, mutual growth, and mutual understanding. It's about two people who are whole coming together to create something beautiful, something bigger than themselves, but that still honors their individual journeys. Choosing yourself isn't easy. It isn't always comfortable, but it is the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for anyone else in your life. It's the key to living a life that is truly your own, a life that is rich with authenticity, purpose, and peace. When you choose yourself, you are choosing to live fully, to stop hiding, and to embrace the fullness of who you are. And from that place, anything is possible. The choice is yours. Will you keep looking for someone to fill the space within you? Or will you step into your own power, trust yourself, and choose to be the person you were always meant to be? Because, in the end, the greatest act of love is to never abandon yourself. Choosing yourself is a journey. It's not a destination you reach after a single choice, but a series of decisions. each one leading you deeper into understanding your true self, your worth, and your potential. In a world where we are constantly told that we are incomplete without someone else, it takes courage to say, I am enough. But that's the freedom of choosing yourself. When you stop seeking external validation, you start living life on your own terms. You begin to trust that everything you need is already within you. As you walk down this path of self-discovery, there may be moments when the world around you seems to push back, when the pressures to conform or be with others feel overwhelming. But remember, the most meaningful relationships are those that come when you are whole, not when you are seeking completion from someone else. The truth is, only when you embrace solitude, trust your own voice, and honor your needs can you truly offer love to others in its purest, most unconditional form. It's not about rejecting connection or love. It's about understanding that your relationship with yourself is the foundation for everything else. When you choose yourself, you're not abandoning others. You're setting the stage for more authentic, fulfilling relationships where both people are free to be themselves. The people who are meant to be in your life will arrive when they're meant to, and they'll appreciate you for who you truly are. So, let this be a reminder. The most powerful form of love isn't found in giving yourself away. It's in choosing yourself, unapologetically. Step into the life you deserve. Embrace the solitude that lets you connect with your inner voice. And from that place of strength, the world will open up to you in ways you never imagined. Because in the end, the greatest love you can ever experience is the one you have with yourself.